Hello everyone! I'm so happy to see you all back on my channel today. In this video, we'll continue following the story of Ly Hoai Ca and Hùng, two people who have always stood strong through life's storms, yet still can't escape the unexpected challenges that keep coming their way. After all the hardships, it seemed their lives would finally return to peace. But a new incident has stirred the whole village, putting Hùng in a difficult situation. Meanwhile, Hoai Ca, amidst all the worries and chaos, remains the gentle source of comfort by his side. What lies ahead for them? Will love and faith be strong enough to carry them through this new storm? Stay with me until the end of the video to find out what happens next. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support gives me the motivation to keep telling their story in the upcoming episodes. That morning, the voices in the village grew louder and denser, like a sudden downpour breaking the early calm. The smell of wood smoke, damp earth after the night rain, and the faint scent of erica blossoms lingering on the porch made the air feel strangely heavy. Hùng knelt beside the wooden chest, his fingers brushing along the edge where the board had been pried open. Wood splinters scattered across the floor, but what caught his attention was a thin red thread stuck near the lock. He picked it up, turning it under the light and frowning. This was far too distinctive to have appeared by accident. Did anyone hear anything strange last night? Hung's low but steady voice broke the silence. An older man replied, "I saw a motorbike parked at the end of the lane around midnight. 2 people got off. But it was dark, I couldn't see their faces." A young girl added, "Early this morning I saw someone in a red jacket rushing away. Their hair was wet. Must have been right after the rain." Hoai Ca stood quietly in the corner of the yard, her eyes red and swollen. She held her foster mother's hand tightly, whispering, "Don't worry, Mom. With Hùng here, we'll figure everything out." Mother Ha lifted her tearful eyes, voice trembling. "The money my son sent me to repair the house, it's all gone. Even the keepsakes from his father, gone too." Hùng sat down, scanning every detail inside the small house. The furniture was untouched, nothing ransacked, only the chest had been forced open. Too neat. Too selective. He stepped slowly into the yard, his gaze tracing the footprints pressed deep into the wet soil. 2 sets, one large, one small, alongside the mark of a motorbike tire. Using a stick, he outlined each print, committing their positions to memory, piecing together fragments of a puzzle forming in his mind. When he turned back, something caught his eye, a damp, crumpled flyer for a roadside inn wedged in the rear window frame. Across the paper was a smudged streak of bright red lipstick. He lifted it, lips tightening. So, it wasn't just men involved in this, he thought. He called out to a few locals, Old Man Tu, the shopkeeper, and Tien, the motorbike driver. "Uncle Tu, check the inns nearby, see if any strangers checked in last night. Mr. Tien, go along the road to the riverside and look for unusual tire marks. And everyone, keep an eye out for anyone with a red jacket or a wave motorbike with matching decals. Let me know right away." They nodded and dispersed in different directions. Meanwhile, Hoai Ca stayed behind, writing down a list of everything stolen, carefully noting even the smallest items. But when she reached the line for the old silver ring, her hand froze. Her foster mother had once told her it was the last thing her father left behind before he passed away. A chill ran through her. This was no ordinary theft. Hùng paused at the gate. The muddy path outside still bore the deep tread of a motorbike tire. He crouched, took a photo with his phone, then shaded his eyes against the sunlight filtering through the erica leaves. Something in that faint morning light stirred his instincts. The person behind this wasn't a stranger. A soft breeze swept by, carrying the red thread from his hand. It danced briefly in the air before settling back onto the damp ground. Hùng watched it fall, his eyes narrowing. Inside him, The scattered clues began to align, forming a clear path, and he knew that if he followed it far enough, it would lead him to a truth no one expected. Early that morning, the village was still wrapped in mist. The distant crowing of roosters blended with the hurried footsteps of villagers rushing toward the end of the lane. No one said a word, yet the whole neighborhood buzzed with tension. Something had happened. From afar, Hoai Ca saw Mother Ha sitting blankly by her doorway, the old headscarf drooping over her face, eyes red and swollen. "My house. Everything's gone, child," she choked out as soon as she saw Hoai Ca and Hung approaching. The small house, once quiet and orderly, now looked strangely chaotic. The wooden chest in the corner had been forced open, its lock snapped clean off and lying on the cold floor. Old papers and clothes were scattered as if someone had rummaged through them in the night. Hoai Ca froze, speechless. Hung crouched beside the chest, running his fingers over the splintered edge. The crack was neat, not deep. Not a clumsy thief, he thought. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Mother Ha's voice trembled as she spoke. "Last night I heard the dog barking, but I thought it was a cat. When I woke up this morning, the money my son sent home and the keepsakes from his father all gone." Her voice faltered. Her hands clenched tightly until her knuckles turned white. Hung remained silent, pacing slowly around the room. The floor still bore traces of fresh mud. At the window, the wooden frame was slightly ajar. Someone had likely entered from there. Everything else remained untouched except for the chest. "Strange," he muttered. "If they only wanted money, why didn't they search anywhere else?" Beside him, Hoai Ca's chest tightened. She knew Mother Ha simple, kind, never one to quarrel with anyone. Who could be so cruel to a woman like her? Outside, more villagers were gathering, whispering among themselves. Some said they saw motorbike headlights flash down the lane in the middle of the night. Others claimed to have heard footsteps, but thought it was just children playing late. The stories tangled together, unclear, uncertain. Hung stood in silence, eyes fixed on the dirt road leading toward the fields. There was something in the air, a faint unease. His instincts told him this wasn't just a random theft. Someone was probing, or deliberately trying to stir trouble in the village. Hoai Ca bent down to pick up a scarf that had fallen to the floor. Along its edge was a dark stain, oily, like grease from a motorbike. She looked at Hung and whispered, "Look at this. They must have been on a bike. And not long ago." Hung nodded slightly, his gaze thoughtful. He glanced toward Mother Ha, still trembling on the doorstep, her frail shoulders quivering in the morning breeze. A wave of pity and determination welled up inside him. He knew this case had to be solved. Not just as an officer, but as someone indebted to the kindness and bond between Mother Ha and Hoai Ca. Outside, the sun began to rise. Soft golden light streamed through the areca palms, glinting on the muddy footprints scattered across the yard. Hung squinted toward the far end of the village road, where the path met the shimmering riverbank. A suspicion flashed through his mind, but he stayed quiet. It wasn't time to speak. Not yet. The afternoon drifted by slowly. Faint sunlight slanted through the areca palms, scattering mottled patches of gold across Mother Ha's yard. The soft rustle of leaves carried the earthy scent that lingered after last night's rain. Villagers had gradually dispersed, leaving only Hung, Hoai Ca, and Mother Ha sitting quietly on the porch. Hung spoke gently. "Let me take another look around the yard. Maybe there's still a clue." The old woman nodded, her hoarse voice trembling. "Go ahead, child, as long as you can find whoever did such a heartless thing." He took a flashlight and moved slowly along the edge of the yard. By the third areca tree from the gate, the soil looked freshly disturbed, loose earth, grass not yet grown back. He knelt, used a bamboo stick to prod the spot, then dug a little with his hand. Beneath the surface was a torn scrap of cloth with faded yellow patterns, half buried in the mud. He rinsed it with the rainwater collected in a jar nearby and examined it under the dim light. Hoai Ca stepped closer and immediately recognized it. This fabric. I've seen it before. That pattern, only the staff uniforms at Aunt Hannah's shop have it. Hung said nothing, his expression hardening slightly. He folded the cloth carefully and slipped it into his pocket. "I'll go talk to her," he murmured. By late afternoon, the sky had turned a dull gray. The wind rattled the wooden door of the small general store with a hollow clack-clack. Hung pushed the door open, wearing a polite smile. "Aunt Han, could I get a bottle of cooking oil and a few packs of instant noodles?" She looked up, startled for a brief second. "Oh, Hung? Haven't seen you in a while. You're working up at the district office now, right?" "Yeah, just back for a few days." "I heard our village has been peaceful lately, not much happening," he replied casually, as if making small talk. Aunt Han gave a faint, uneasy smile. Her hands moved quickly, placing items into a plastic bag, but he noticed the subtle tremor in her fingers. "Well, yes, nothing much. Just the same as always," she said, voice slightly strained. Hung's eyes shifted to her wrist. A thin scratch marked her skin, still carrying traces of dried mud. It was small but sharp, like it had been cut by wire. "Did you hurt yourself?" "That looks fresh," he asked lightly, his tone calm but his gaze sharp. "Oh, that? I caught it on a nail while lifting a sack this morning," she answered quickly, avoiding his eyes. Hung nodded without pressing further. He paid, thanked her, and stepped outside. By then, dusk had fallen. The village road stretched ahead, painted in pale violet light. Behind him, the shop door closed with a faint click, a small sound that somehow echoed coldly through the still air. A few steps later, he stopped. The evening breeze lifted the edge of Aunt Hannah's blouse as she stood by the doorway, revealing a glimpse of pale yellow fabric, patterned just like the torn piece in his pocket. His brow furrowed, his hand tightened around the cloth. A heavy sense of foreboding crept into his chest. Night slowly descended. The streetlight at the end of the lane flickered on, casting a dim glow across his face. Hung turned back to look at the little shop, his eyes deep and unreadable, hiding a truth he wasn't ready to speak aloud. Late at night, the rain began to fall. The first drops hit the tin roof, sounding like hundreds of tiny knocks, steady, cold, and hollow. A gust of wind swept in from the fields, carrying the damp smell of mud and earth. The village lay in darkness. Only a few faint yellow lights flickered from distant houses, blurred by the curtain of rain. Hung was still awake. He put on his raincoat, grabbed his flashlight, and quietly walked down the familiar path leading to Mother Hoa's house. Since the night of the theft, he hadn't been able to rest. Something about the case still didn't sit right. That feeling of unease kept tugging at him, refusing to let him sleep. The night was so silent that the only sounds were the rain drumming on rooftops and the soft rustle of leaves along the muddy path. He stood behind a neem tree near the gate, flashlight off, his figure drenched in rain and shadow. Lightning flashed now and then, briefly illuminating his face, calm but alert. He focused on the porch of Mother Hoa's house, where the wooden chest had once been pried open, now closed and covered with an old cloth. Time crept by. The watch in his pocket showed almost midnight. The wind picked up. Raindrops stung his face like small whips. Then, through the gray curtain of rain, a figure appeared. Tall, thin, wearing a hooded raincoat of dark color. The person moved slowly, cautiously. Reaching the porch, they didn't go inside, but bent down to place a small fabric pouch beside the step, then turned to leave. "Stop right there." Hung's voice cut through the rain, sharp and low. The stranger froze as if struck by lightning. Hung lunged forward, gripping the person's shoulder and pulling them close. The flashlight flicked on, shining directly into a pale, frightened face. It was Tin, the son of Anton from the village shop. The boy stood frozen, lips trembling, eyes wide with fear. The pouch slipped from his hand, spilling onto the wet ground. Inside were damp bundles of money and several old gold pieces, dull and tarnished, Mother Haas missing valuables. Hung stared at him, his voice deep and cold. "Explain, Tin. What are you doing here?" Tin's head dropped, shoulders shaking as the rain streamed down his face. I can't hide it anymore," he stammered. "They forced me, Uncle Hung." Hung's eyes narrowed, the beam of his flashlight casting hard shadows across his stern face. "Who forced you?" Tin bit his lip, hesitated, then blurted out quickly as if afraid he'd lose the courage. "It was Bay, the worker at the Riverside construction site. That day he came to my mom's shop drunk and said he needed a favor. He told me to help open Mother Haas' house, said he just needed to get some documents for someone he knew. He promised to pay me a few $100,000. I was stupid enough to believe him." He lifted his eyes, red and swollen. "I didn't know he was going to break open the chest and steal everything. When I saw him run off with the bag, I panicked. I didn't tell anyone, couldn't sleep for nights. Mom kept asking, but I said nothing. Tonight, I couldn't stand it anymore. I came to return it." Hung looked at the trembling boy before him, his heart conflicted. Tin was young, honest-faced, yet his frightened eyes showed real guilt and remorse. Under the light, Hung noticed scratches on the boy's hands, long, raw marks, likely from digging in the dirt to hide the bag before bringing it back. The door creaked open. A dim oil lamp flickered from inside, casting light across the wet yard. Mother Haas stepped out, shivering, clutching the lamp with unsteady hands. When she saw the bag, she froze, then gasped, her voice breaking. "My heavens, that's mine. The money, the jewelry, it's all still here." Hung stepped forward, picked up the pouch, and handed it to her. "Mother Ha, your things have been found. Please check to be sure." Her hands trembled as she opened it. Tears rolled down her face. "Yes, it's all here. Thank you, son, thank you." Turning back to Tin, Hung spoke firmly but not harshly. "You made a mistake, but it's not too late to make it right. Tomorrow, come with me to the commune and tell them everything. I'll take care of this, Bay. But from now on, no more hiding." Tin bowed his head, voice cracking. "Yes, sir. I know I was wrong. I just didn't want anyone to think badly of my mother. She didn't know anything, please believe me." Hung looked him in the eye. His tone softened slightly. "I believe you. But if you want others to believe you too, you have to be honest completely." The wind rose again, carrying a bone-deep chill. The rain slanted sideways, soaking all three of them standing in the dark yard. Tin's small figure slowly faded into the curtain of rain as he bowed his head and walked away, leaving Hung standing motionless beneath the storm. He lifted his gaze toward the sky, his breath mingling with the misty air. In his mind, questions formed one after another. How did Bay know about the money Mother Haas' son had sent home? Who told him? Or was someone else pulling the strings behind the scenes? A flash of lightning illuminated Hung's face, stern, cold, and deep as the surface of a midnight river. He knew this wasn't over. Beneath the veil of rain that cloaked the quiet village, something darker was stirring. And he had to uncover it before it was too late. Early the next morning, mist still hung low over the areca trees. The village had barely awakened when the sound of police motorbikes echoed down the narrow dirt road leading to the Riverside construction site. Hung rode with the investigation team, his face composed, though a quiet tension flickered in his eyes. When they arrived, Bay was crouched by the workers' shack, trying to light a small fire. At the sight of the approaching officers, he bolted, but Hung moved faster. In one swift motion, he tackled the man to the ground, the metallic click of handcuffs cutting sharply through the pale dawn air. The rain from the night before had turned the earth into thick mud, splattering across Hung's pant legs as he stood up. At the commune office, after several hours of questioning, Bay finally lowered his head and confessed everything. He had heard, through idle gossip at a roadside tea stall, that Mother Ha had just received money from her son working afar. Greed took over. He sought out Hana's son, lured him with smooth words and the promise of a few 100,000 dong, claiming he only needed to retrieve some documents from a relative's house. But the moment the door opened, he slipped inside, pried open the wooden chest, and took all the cash and gold before disappearing into the night. As the man spoke, Hung said nothing. He just looked at him, calm, steady, eyes both cold and sorrowful. What filled him wasn't anger, but quiet disappointment that for a fleeting moment of greed, a person could lose all sense of decency. That afternoon, news of Bay's arrest spread through the village. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The fear and unease that had hung over them for days finally lifted. Neighbors came to Mother Ha's house, bringing cakes, fruit, and warm words. Thank goodness. The police acted so fast. All thanks to Hung, otherwise, who knows how long this would have dragged on. Mother Ha sat on the porch, her eyes still red from tears, but her smile gentle and full of gratitude. She held Hoai Ca's hand tightly, her voice trembling. If it weren't for Hung, I would have lost everything. Good people still exist in this world, my dear. Hoai Ca nodded, squeezing her mother's hand in return. The late afternoon sun filtered through the erica leaves, tracing soft light over the old woman's kind, wrinkled face. She turned her gaze to Hung, the man wiping sweat from his brow, his clothes still smeared with mud, his calm eyes shining with quiet strength. A wave of emotion welled up in Hoai Ca's chest, part tenderness, part pride. Her love for him wasn't loud or showy, it flowed deep and steady, like an underground stream, silent, yet powerful and enduring. She smiled softly, her eyes finding his, as if to say what words could not. I believe in you, and as long as you're here, goodness will always prevail. In the distance, the sound of roosters echoed over the fields, mingling with the scent of sun-dried straw. Peace slowly returned to the village. But within every heart, the memory of the theft on the rainy night would remain, a quiet reminder that goodness still lives among people. And that justice, though sometimes slow, always finds its way home. Late in the afternoon, the clouds slowly cleared, leaving the sky bright and calm after a long rain. The ground was still damp, carrying the scent of fresh straw and soft, rich soil. Along the narrow path leading to the fields, Hoai Ca and Hung walked side by side, their steps gentle, the earth sinking softly beneath their shoes. She tilted her head toward him, a faint smile touching her lips light as the breeze. You must feel happy, helping Mother like that, right? Hung was silent for a few seconds before replying in a low, thoughtful voice. Yeah, happy of course, but also a bit sad. Sometimes, kindness gets taken advantage of. Still, if everyone's too afraid of being hurt to do what's right, then who's left to stand for justice? Hoai Ca stopped walking, looking at him quietly for a long moment. In her eyes shimmered both affection and pride. All I need to know is no matter what happens, you'll always be the one I trust the most. Hung turned to her and smiled gently. The evening wind brushed past, cool and clean after the rain. The erica leaves along the roadside swayed softly, their rustling like the whisper of twilight. From afar, the sound of temple bells echoed, deep, steady, serene. It filled the air, mingling with the last golden rays spilling across the wet fields, wrapping everything in a rare, peaceful glow. They walked on in silence. Only the wind, their footsteps, and the quiet rhythm of their hearts kept company. Another day came to an end, simple, calm, yet deep down, both knew, sometimes a single small event is enough to test the heart, to reveal who is true and who is not. There are people who don't need a uniform to choose the right side. And there are loves that don't need vows, they endure because of trust. Hoai Ca smiled softly as the breeze brushed through her hair, while Hùng gazed toward the far horizon, where the sunset melted slowly into night. On that rain-soaked path, the two of them kept walking, saying little, but each step carrying peace and a quiet, steadfast faith in one another. Stay tuned for the next episode tomorrow, where Hoai Ca and Hùng story continues, with new challenges waiting just beyond the dawn.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người, bây giờ thì mình đang làm video về câu chuyện của mẹ đơn thân Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Và mình cũng sắp hoàn thành rồi, bây giờ mình cần đặt tên video, sau đó là mình làm thumbnail nữa. Mình chưa biết làm thumbnail như thế nào. Mình không có ý tưởng gì cho thumbnail hết ạ.